Welcome back to our journey through the Republic. By this point in the dialogue, Plato has spent a great deal of time constructing his ideal society. He has described the philosopher king. He has explained why wisdom should guide leadership. He has distinguished knowledge from opinion. And he has argued that most people live their lives focused on appearances rather than truth. Now, in Book 7, Plato brings all these ideas together in a single image. An image so powerful that it remains one of the most discussed passages in the history of philosophy. The Allegory of the Caves. What makes this story remarkable is that it is not simply about politics. It is about the human condition itself. It is about education. It is also about ignorance. It is about the truth. And it is about the difficult journey from one to the other. Socrates asks us to imagine a group of human beings living inside a vast underground cave. These prisoners have been there since childhood. Their legs are chained, their necks are chained. They cannot turn their heads, they cannot look behind them, and all they can do is stare at the wall in front of them. Behind them burns a fire. Between the fire and the prisoner stands a raised pathway. Along this pathway, people carry statues, figures of animals, and various objects. The fire projects shadows of these objects onto the cave wall. The prisoners see only the shadow and nothing else. Since they have never experienced any other reality, they naturally assume the shadows are real. If a shadow appears, they believe it exists. If an echo bounces through the cave, they believe the shadow produced the sound. The prisoners have no reason to doubt their world because they have never encountered anything different. They lived there, they were born there. This is where Plato introduces his first philosophical insight. Human being often mistakes appearances for reality. Notice that the prisoners are not lying. They are not deliberately deceiving themselves. They simply do not know any better. Their ignorance is sincere. And this is important because Plato is not describing stupidity. He is describing a limitation of human experience. Much of what we believe comes from what we have been exposed to, like our families, our communities, our culture, our education, our traditions. In many cases, we inherit assumptions long before we learn how to even question them. This is why the cave is fundamentally an allegory about education. Now, something extraordinary happens. One prisoner is released. For the first time in his life, he stands up. Immediately, he experiences discomfort. The movement hurts. The fire hurts his eyes. The objects creating the shadows seem less real than the shadows themselves. This is a detail many readers overlook. Plato is teaching that learning is often painful. We sometimes speak about education as though it simply adds information to the mind. Plato disagrees. For him, education involves transformation. It requires abandoning old assumptions. It requires admitting that what we once believed may have been incomplete or even false. Anyone who has engaged seriously with scholarship understands this experience. A student enters the university believing history is straightforward. Then, along the line, they encounter multiple interpretations of the same event. A student also enters believing a political issue has a simple solution. Then they discover layers of economic, cultural, and historical complexity. The result is often discomfort. Certainty begins to disappear. Plato will say that this discomfort is the beginning of intellectual growth. The freed prisoner is dragged out of the cave. Again, Plato emphasizes resistance. The prisoner does not willingly run toward enlightenment. He struggles. He resists. The sunlight overwhelms him. At first, he can see almost nothing. Then gradually he begins to adjust. First, he sees shadows, then reflections, then physical objects, then the stars, and finally he looks directly at the sun. This progression is important. Plato is describing stages of knowledge. Human understanding develops gradually. We do not move instantly from ignorance to wisdom. We move step by step, question by question, discovery by discovery. For Plato, the sun represents what he previously called the form of the good. Just as the physical sun makes sight possible, the good makes knowledge possible. It is the ultimate source of intelligibility. This is one of the most difficult concepts in the Republic, but we can understand it through a simple example. Imagine a society where people possess information, but they lack moral understanding. They know how to build technology. They know how to generate wealth. They know how to even acquire power, but they do not know what these things should be used for. It means knowledge without a conception of the good becomes dangerous. Plato therefore argues that wisdom requires more than information. It requires understanding what is ultimately worth pursuing. This brings us to another important point. Many people assume the cave is about acquiring facts. No, it is not. The prisoner does not merely learn new information. He learns how to think differently about reality itself. Plato is describing a change in consciousness, a transformation in perspective, a movement from appearances to underlying truth. Then comes the most tragic part of the story. The prisoner returns to the cave. This is where the allegory becomes political. Having seen reality, he feels obligated to return and help those who remain in prison. But when he re-enters the darkness, his eyes no longer function properly. The other prisoners notice his confusion, so they laugh at him. They conclude that leaving the cave has damaged him. And when he attempts to free them, Plato suggests they may even kill him. At this point, the allegory becomes personal. We should remember that Plato is writing after the execution of Socrates. His teacher spent his life questioning assumptions, exposing ignorance and encouraging critical reflection. How did Athens respond? They responded by condemning him to death. The cave therefore contains Plato's reflection on the fate of the philosopher in society. Why are truth seekers often rejected? Because truth is disruptive. It challenges habits. It questions assumptions. It forces people to reconsider beliefs that have become comfortable. And human beings really welcome that process. What then is the central lesson of the cave? What are we learning from all this story? Many interpretations have been offered over the centuries, but perhaps the most important is this: education is not the transfer of information. Education is the reorientation of the soul. Plato does not believe teachers simply fill empty minds with knowledge. Instead, education helps people turn towards reality. The philosopher's task is not merely to know, it is to see clearly. And once reality has been seen, there is a responsibility to return and contribute to society, even when society resists. This is why the allegory of the cave remains relevant after more than 2,000 years. It speaks to every generation because it addresses a permanent human problem. How do we know whether what we believe is true in the first place? And perhaps even more importantly, if we discover a deeper truth, will we have the courage to follow it wherever it leads? In our next episode, Plato leaves the cave behind and turns to a darker question. If education can elevate human beings toward wisdom, why do societies so often move in the opposite direction? Why do civilizations decay? Why do good political systems eventually collapse? And how does the pursuit of honor, wealth, freedom, and power slowly transform a healthy society into a corrupt one? Thank you for joining me on this episode. I remain your host, Osho Abiodun. Don't forget to join me some other time.